All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeromy from the agency. I'm a probate real estate specialist, and today I am talking to a good buddy of mine who is also a trust and probate attorney, Haroun Nabhan. I know your title's probably way longer than that, so you can tell us real quick, like who you are and what you do.
All right. Hey, Jeromy. Really good to be with you. I'm Haroun Nabhan. I'm as you hit the nail on the head, I'm a trust and probate attorney here in South Pasadena. I only practice in this area, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. And so it's a great practice area. I love helping individuals and families. And yeah, pleasure to be here to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate you joining us. So right out of the gates, my first question is, who is your ideal client? Like, who can you help the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. I deal with family members a lot of times. I deal with loved ones who are need help with handling the estate of a loved one who's passed away. Sometimes that's a parent, sometimes it's a spouse, and so those are typically the clients that I help. I also do conservatorships as well. So I help families establish conservatorships for an older loved one or a family member that is developmentally disabled.
Very cool. Interesting. Okay. So, because I've kind of learned a lot from you and getting certified as this probate specialist, we know it's the executor, right? The executor that kind of handles all of the stuff after, your loved one has passed. And to the viewers out there, like, it's a hard topic because you need resources and you need to find out information, but it's also a sensitive time and it's tough. So, what's kind of the main, like, first out of the gates, like one simple thing that an executor without an attorney might miss? Like if my grandmother, my grandmother passed away last year, we kind of went through this process. And if I didn't have someone like you, what's the one first thing that I would have missed if I didn't have the advice?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of things that are easy to miss, only because doing a probate is it's very procedurally intensive. So one thing that somebody who's representing themselves in pro per without an attorney might miss is doing the publication. So in order to get appointed as the personal representative of an estate, you first have to start by petitioning the court, and you have to file a petition in the court. You have to figure out the appropriate venue for that petition. So it should be in the county where the decedent resided. So if they lived within LA County, you would be filing with the LA County Superior Court. After you file your petition, the court will give you a hearing date. The hearing date's usually scheduled within 30 days of the date that you filed the petition. Now, in the meantime, before you have your hearing, there's a couple of things that the petitioner has to do. One thing is they have to publish notice of their petition in a local newspaper within the neighborhood where the decedent lived. And this is mostly for the benefit of any potential creditors out there. This kind of puts them on notice that the decedent has passed away, and if they have any creditors' claims, this puts them on notice that they should file those claims with the court. The other thing that the petitioner has to do is they have to give notice to, if there's a will, they have to give notice to anybody pretty much anybody that's mentioned in the will. And if there is no will, they have to give notice of the petition to any heirs of the estate. So that's something that somebody working without an attorney might miss. They might not, they might just give notice to people who intuitively they think are related to the decedent, but
Right. Brothers or sisters or something.
Right. Yeah. And even if they're not mentioned in the will, they're still required by law to receive notice. For example, I had a case recently where the decedent had a will. She was not married, didn't have any children, and so she actually named a good friend of hers as the beneficiary of her will. Now, because of the legal legal notice requirements, we still had to give notice to very remote relatives that lived out of state, and so we had to hire a private investigator to track these people down. So,
oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that's kind of an extreme example, but I just bring it up just to give you an example of how you have to give notice to heirs, even if they're not mentioned in the will.
Right. It's interesting that you have to really kind of, as the executor, have to do the due diligence to get out there and find something to avoid probably legal action later on because you didn't. So
that's exactly right. Yeah. And so in all likelihood, the executor is probably not going to have issues with these remote family members, but it's still something you have to do just to protect yourself and just to make sure you comply with the law. Yeah.
You never know. Okay. That's amazing. That's great. How long does this whole process take for probate, from like the person has passed away and we know it's going to go into probate? How long is that process from like beginning until the probate is closed?
Right. So I like to say that a probate is kind of a marathon and not a sprint. It can be a bit of a slow process from start to finish. Typically takes about a year. Now it's possible to do a probate in around 9 months, but that's kind of if everything
it's a huge amount of time
goes really smoothly and there are no unexpected issues that come up. But it's typically about a year.
Yeah, and I'm sure with post-COVID life, right, courts are maybe not as speedy as they were pre-COVID. So is that something you're seeing out there, that like it's still kind of dragging, or is it starting to get better?
It's starting to get better. It was a bit of an issue during the pandemic. Slowly, the courts have opened back up. Their calendars are starting to get a little bit more caught up. But in some cases, it's not unusual to file a petition and not get a hearing for 4 months, 5 months, something like that. So, it is still a bit of an issue, but it is getting better.
Okay, that's good to know. What are some of the costs, like when somebody passes away? Do they have to pay taxes, or let's talk about some of the costs around, like, I know you mentioned creditors before. Like, if I'm dead, why do I need to pay my creditors? Why do I need to pay taxes? Is that something that I have to do, or can I get away with not? I mean, I guess it would be the heir, right?
Yeah.
Not like, why do I need to pay my dead grandmother's taxes if she's dead, right?
So that's a good question. So, typically, the beneficiaries or heirs of an estate aren't on the hook for debts that are owed by the decedent. But one of the things that the personal representative of the estate has to do is they have to make sure that all outstanding debts owed by the decedent are settled before the estate can be wound down and before you can do final distribution to the beneficiaries.
Gotcha.
Yeah. As far as taxes, that depends on the specific case, but the personal representative is responsible for filing a final income tax return.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually that gets filed during the administration. And if there are estate taxes owed, the personal representative would take care of filing an estate tax return. But in most cases, because the estate tax exemptions are so high, currently for this year, we're at about 12 million that can pass estate tax free to beneficiaries.
That's
And
great.
that's 12 million for an individual. That's slated to sunset in 2025. So it's always a good idea to consult with an attorney and just make sure that you're up to speed on the current laws. But
Right.
in most cases, no estate taxes will be owed. Possibly income taxes if the decedent didn't file, or if the decedent earned enough income to have tax liability.
Right. Right. If it was more of an all of a sudden passing or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Throughout the year. You just mentioned something, settling with creditors. Now, does that mean that they could settle some of those accounts at less or even zero of what the person owed? Like, hey, this person has passed away. We just want to settle this account. Is that something that is possible, or?
Sometimes it is, yeah. So sometimes, depending on the value of the estate, if it's a relatively small estate, or if there's other more high priority debts that are owed. For example, a credit card might take pennies on the dollar, or might take they might accept less than the full amount. So it really just depends on what's in the estate and
right.
And what the creditor is willing to accept.
And is that something that you can negotiate? Like if somebody hired you as an attorney, is that something that you negotiate, or do they need to go negotiate?
It can work either way. In some cases, I have become involved, and I'll reach out to the creditors and I'll explain the situation. I'll provide them with documentation, and in most cases, they're pretty receptive to settling.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's really good to know, because I know when it comes to money, like, people just, sometimes they don't know what to do, especially if there's a bunch of money in the estate. So they're just like, oh, it's just gonna get zapped by all the creditors and all the people that, are trying to dig out money from that estate. So let's talk real quick about you and your fee. Like, I've always been under the impression that attorneys are expensive, right? And for good reason, because there's navigating so many things that, maybe I don't know what I don't know, right? And sometimes I'm thinking, oh, I can do it on my own, and then I get myself in trouble, right? So talk to me real quick about, like, if I hired you today, my grandmother has passed away, and I hired you today, like, what do I have to pay you day one?
Yeah, so the nice thing about probates is the law has been set up so that attorneys are paid at the end of the probate administration, and they're paid a statutory fee that's it's a percentage of the gross value of the estate. And so
okay.
There's a whole formula that's used that's set by the probate code. I actually might be able to share my screen and just show that to you.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing that and I feel like that would relieve an executor from like, oh, this guy charges so much. Well, if it's set by the court, then it feels a little bit better, right? Like, and it's a piece of the probate estate that, it just feels better, because it feels like now you're on my side, right? And you're not just gouging me for, oh, I did a phone call, so I need $10,000, right? So
right.
Which I know, that a lot of people's perceptions is that, and so I like kind of squashing that and just saying, hey, it's not like that, right? You can hire an attorney, work with an attorney, somebody like yourself who's trusted, and you guys have the same goal in mind. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the idea in setting up the law this way, because I think legislature understood that it can be a heavy burden for a surviving family member to have to come up with a lot of attorney's fees to probate an estate, especially if somebody has passed away unexpectedly. So
Right.
so basically the attorney gets paid at the end of the probate. It's a percentage of the estate.
Nice.
It's 4% of the first $100,000, 3% of the next 100,000, and then 2% of any amount after that. And so really, if somebody wanted to hire an attorney and just to get started, there's really no upfront attorney's fees that have to be paid. The attorney might
Amazing.
ask for a small retainer just to pay for costs, for example, like court filing fees and publication fees, but nothing too exorbitant. And
Yeah.
usually if you have to front expenses like that, you can later get reimbursed by the estate for any out-of-pocket expenses.
Oh, cool. Okay. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Okay. So, I know we're running on almost 15 minutes here, so I want to keep our time together pretty tight because I know you're a busy guy and you've got lots of estates that you're helping. So my last question is, eh, you know, I feel like probate is one of those things that you don't want to go through if you can avoid it. How, and it's costly and it costs the estate money, or it costs me as an heir money, right? Whether
Sure.
it's attorney's fees or this or that or the other. How do I avoid the costs of probate to begin with?
That's a great question. So you can avoid it by having a living trust and making sure that you name beneficiaries for your retirement accounts and bank accounts. You just want to do as much pre-planning as you possibly can, and
Right.
that's where having a good estate planning attorney comes in.
Okay.
But yeah, you do want to avoid probate to the extent that you can. Like you said, it's costly. Like we talked about it. The process takes about a year. It will make things easier for your relatives and for your loved ones. And I would highly recommend talking to an estate planning attorney.
That's perfect. So, and that's something that you can help people set up as well, the trust, and not just a will, because a will is not going to really cut it. It'll still go through probate, but you need a living trust to make sure that your heirs and your wishes kind of get sent out. So that's something that you can help people set up as well, correct?
It is definitely, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, Haroun, thank you so much. I can't tell you how helpful this was to me, and I've studied this stuff, right? So I can imagine like the people watching this video are really going to appreciate some of that stuff. And I think in the future we'll talk about conservatorship, we'll talk about some of the other maybe tax laws and stuff in another video. But yeah, I really appreciate you kind of meeting with me today and going over some of this stuff, and hopefully it's helpful to the viewers out there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Cool. And everybody, I'm going to put down below, I'm going to put Haroun's information. So I'm sure that, if you just have a quick question, I'm sure he'll take a call and answer a question or two. And he's a really great attorney. He's a really great guy. So again, thanks, Haroun, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.